Welcome to Coming Out of the Spiritual Closet with your host, me, Brittany Wittig. Join me every week to explore and demystify the world of modern spirituality. Welcome back, everyone. This week, I want to talk about intuition and receiving intuitive messages from the universe. So receiving information through your intuition. You'll hear people talk about how they see things while they're doing a reading, or they hear things while they're doing a reading. And I think that it can seem very mysterious and confusing. Like, how is this possible that they're hearing or seeing things that we can't physically hear or see? So yeah, I want to talk about this and talk specifically about how you can open up your own intuition and really start experiencing this for yourself, because we all can. It's not that certain people are special. Everyone has this ability. So first of all, what is intuition? And there are lots of different ways that people describe intuition. I want to give you a slightly more tangible explanation because I think it makes it easier if you can really almost visualize what it is, okay? When you start getting present in the now moment, and I talk about this in episode 2 when I talked about time and mindfulness. So if you haven't heard that episode, it's a really great foundation for a lot of what I talk about on this podcast. When you start to get present and you start observing your thoughts instead of being your thoughts are not you. You are what is observing the thoughts. You are the being observing your thoughts. Once you realize that, and once you start practicing that, a space begins to open up between you, the real you, and your thoughts. And your intuition is what comes through in that space that opens up. You can almost imagine like layers between your brain and your true self, which is this energetic body. And there's this space there between the two. That space is what I think of as intuition. And that space is where messages show up. So when people say that they're doing a reading and they say, oh, I'm seeing this, or I'm hearing this, it is in that space, that intuition space, that they are seeing and hearing these things. It's a real sensory perception, but it's different than what you see or hear with your eyes or ears. It feels different. It's more subtle. And that's because it is happening outside of the physical 3D senses. For me, that has been really helpful in understanding where these visions, where these voices, where these different intuitive perceptions are coming from. I also want to point out, intuition can just be a knowing. It can just be a feeling. It doesn't actually have to be something you hear or see. A lot of people do hear and see within that intuition space, but a lot of other people will just know. They'll just know something. Something will just pop into their mind. Some people will just have a feeling, and that feeling will be in that intuitive space. A lot of us have some combination of all of these, right? Like I've definitely had the experience of just that really intense gut feeling. That's in the intuitive space. Or just suddenly knowing something. That comes from the intuitive space. For me, the primary way I connect with that space is, I want to say knowing and seeing, but that is different for everyone. And as you open up that intuitive space, you'll start to see what is easiest for you as well, and what the way that you receive information. So how do you open up to your intuition? Well, the first place to start is what I discussed a minute ago, and that is recognizing that your thoughts are separate from you. If you've never read Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. I think it is the number one most important spiritual text, besides maybe A Course in Miracles. Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, is absolutely a must read. I will link to it in the show notes so that you can get yourself a copy and read it. He explains this observation of your thoughts, the difference between being the observer and being the thoughts. As you start to make space between your thoughts and yourself, then the next step is when you receive what feels like it might be intuition, because at first it won't be easy to recognize. At first, it might just feel like you're making something up. So when you receive that possibly intuitive hit, write it down in your journal and make a practice of every single time this happens, writing it down. And if you don't have your journal with you, make a note in your phone. I have tons of notes in my phone of intuitive hits that have come in. The more you document these intuitive feelings, visions, things you hear, the more you will be able to go back and see how they have been validated by the reality around you. Keeping that record early on is so important because that's how you learn to trust yourself. And trusting yourself is such an important part of intuition. It's such an important part of receiving. The more you trust what you receive, the more you will receive. It's a snowball effect. In the very beginning, the key is learning to trust it. That's the very first step. And once you have learned to start trusting it, then the next step is to really start practicing with it. A great way to do that is with tarot cards or oracle cards. And I do have an episode, number 3, I think, but you'll see it. It's called Let's Talk Tarot and Oracle Cards. And I have an episode all about getting started with cards. But cards are a great way to start practicing with that intuition. And again, continuing to build that trust, because the trust building with your intuition, it's really never ending. It keeps going for the rest of your life. Once you have just a little bit of trust, then it's time to start practicing with things. If cards don't feel right to you, you can meditate and ask for intuitive guidance. You can do readings with your friends. If you have friends that you feel comfortable enough to do that with, if you have other spiritual friends, it can be awesome practice to just sit with someone, open yourself up to receiving information about them, of course, only with their permission, and then share with them whatever comes through. This is a great way to build trust in your intuition. And another way to really build your intuition and build trust with it is actually Reiki energy healing. For me, Reiki was a huge portal into connecting with my intuition. Reiki really helps open you up to all of the energy that is available to us all the time. If you're interested, learning Reiki and getting Reiki attuned is so valuable, even if you never plan to actually use that as a Reiki healer with other people. It's just such a powerful energy to get comfortable and familiar with on your spiritual journey. I highly recommend at some point in your journey learning about Reiki and getting Reiki attuned. And if Reiki attunement is something that you're interested in right now and you'd like some recommendations, definitely send me a DM on Instagram, shoot me an email through the website. I'm happy to give you some direct referrals. I know a few different really incredible Reiki instructors. Okay, so that's my little crash course in getting familiar and comfortable with your intuition and really starting to tap into your intuition. I hope that's helpful. If you are getting value from this podcast, please share it, follow, subscribe, tell your friends about it. I so appreciate all of the support, all of the ratings, all of the reviews. It's so amazing. And I hope you have a beautiful week.